Hello everyone, this is David Avellan, and it's going to be my second installment of my video blog. And I want to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is competition. I love competition. I think it's the ultimate way of challenging yourself and putting yourself into a position where you're going to learn. Because every time you compete, you learn more about yourself and ways you can improve yourself. And I'm brought up to this because I just watched and coached at Anaga yesterday, and first off, let me say I'm very proud of everybody from my team. I think they did a great job in their competition. A lot of guys coming in for the first time with no experience whatsoever. I had one man who had just finished working and he was like racing to get there just to compete. So it shows a lot of dedication and a lot of courage. So I applaud everybody. I'm very proud of everybody from the Freestyle Fighting Academy. Now, this is going to bring me up to the point that I see, especially a lot of first-time competitors or people who are just getting into the first couple matches, and that is stress. Competition stress is a very real thing. Some people might not understand how big a deal it plays in your outcome of a fight. First off, stress is going to be the #1 thing that wears you down. The more stressed you are, the quicker you exhaust yourself. And the more stressed you are, the less likely that you're going to be able to perform to your fullest potential. You might not utilize the techniques that you normally use. You might not fight the way you normally do. And you might just not have a good experience overall just because the stress of competition. Now, what do I mean? There's several things that can be stressing you. Okay, one, if you have anything in your mind other than the competition, like, well, I have to get back to work in a few hours, or I have this project due, and that's eating you up in the back of your mind, you gotta clear it right away. When you go to compete, nothing else matters. At that point, you're #1, and the competition is the #1 thing that you're here for. Nothing else is as important as your competition, so nothing should be above it in priority. So your mind should be totally focused in on the competition. So that would be one source of stress. Bringing stress in from the outside that has nothing to do with your competition. #2 is stress of injury, okay, or the fear of injury. Now, since we're doing combat sports, it's a very, obvious fact, or obvious situation that that an injury could occur. You have to be very real with yourself. In the combat sports or any physical activity, injury is a possibility. If you play football, you can get injured. You can play basketball. Even doing golf, you can get injured. So it's not that combat sports is more dangerous than the other. In fact, especially for guys who are doing grappling, it's probably one of the safest things you can do, because you can remove yourself from the match at any point in time just by tapping out. So if you can minimize that level of stress, realize it's there and that it's not a big deal. The worst thing that's going to happen to you, your arm gets cranked a little bit, no problem, a couple of weeks of rehab and you're good. And the likelihood of getting injured is very small. So for me, that's how I would deal with fear of injury. Everybody has different degrees of it, but when you learn to cope with it and you accept it, it's going to help remove that stress from your mind. Okay. The next stress, and probably one of the bigger sources of stress for competitions, is fear of letting people down. You don't want to let yourself down. You don't want to let your coach down. You don't want to let your friends, your teammates, your girlfriends, etc. There's a whole list of people. The thing you have to realize, like I said earlier before, the only person that matters when you're competing is you. Nobody else. When you compete for yourself. You compete because you want to challenge yourself and you want to test yourself to see how good you are, what can you learn about yourself, how can you improve yourself, and overall just to enjoy the experience of competition. Going up against somebody that you don't know and matching heads with them. So, in fact, everybody that's there watching is there to watch you, okay? You're the star. So, they're there to support you. And if you have a good coach and a good teammates, they'll understand that, and they're not going to be ragging on you if you lose or you don't do as good as you thought you should. In fact, they'll be there to support you and to cheer you up. And sometimes we'll see, a coach there, which to my opinion is a bad coach, chewing up their guy for losing a match. That should never happen. If you lose a match, it's a learning experience. You win a match, it means great job. What you learned worked. And I'm probably sure there's still things that you can learn from your victories as well. So try to squash that fear completely, because you're only there to improve yourself. It shouldn't matter whether you win or lose, or you pull off the coolest move in the tournament. That stuff doesn't matter. It's just the whole idea of competition is an experience for you to build yourself up to become a better person. So that's another fear there. This next one is probably one of the bigger fears that even a seasoned pro can have, and it's the fear of the unknown. Now, there's several parts to that. The first is the setting. Where are you competing? Is it in a high school gymnasium, an auditorium, in a stadium? Have you ever been there before? Do you know what it looks like? So this is one aspect of it. And the best way of trying to remove that is to get as familiar as possible with the setting. Find out, how many people are going to be there. How is the seating like? Where are you going to be warming up? Where are you going to be competing? Where's the bathrooms? Where's your food? Etc. The more familiar you are with it, and ideally you want to be as comfortable in that arena as your own house or your own gym. So you feel very relaxed being there. And it's not like you're in some unknown territory and you don't know what's going to happen. Okay, so that's one part of the unknown. Second is the actual environment. And by environment, I mean what's going on. Are people everywhere? Small crowd, giant crowd, video cameras in your face, lots of people in your corner. The more of an understanding that you have with that, the better. One great way of eliminating these two stresses is by actually going to competitions just to watch. Just be a spectator or a fly on the wall and just look around and get a feel for the place. Hear the sounds, see the sights, the smells, everything you can to fully enwrap yourself and get all your senses activated so that you know what you're setting and what the environment's going to feel like. So you'll know, if you go to a grappling tournament, there's big crowds and lots of people crowding the mats. You're not going to feel, intimidated by that. You already expect it. Likewise, if you're fighting, there's going to be cameras on you, people watching you, cheering, people patting you in the back as you're walking into the cage. All these things help you prepare for that, so it feels like just another day at work. Now the third one, and this is the one that's going to get even the best guys, is the unknown opponent. You're going to be fighting somebody you've never met before. How do they fight? What things are they going to use on you? These thoughts can come through your mind very often. So it's important to be able to understand one thing. Worry about what you're going to bring to the table. Don't worry about what they're going to do. Okay? If you focus on fighting your game plan and enforcing it onto your opponent, you're going to have a great fight. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't know what your opponent's capable of. If you have that luxury of knowing what viewing videos or getting reports on what your opponent does, it's great. It can help you prepare better. But always try to prepare yourself to fight your match. Don't try to look too deeply into what they do, because people change. And if you're expecting to get one thing and another thing comes up, that's the worst feeling ever. When you're like, oh man, I wasn't ready for this. Rather than if you just prepared yourself fully and you come out ready to fight your game plan regardless of what the other guy's bringing, I believe that's a better way of going about it. So that's the fear of the unknown. And those three areas that we covered are usually the biggest fears that people have, okay? And the biggest stressors, okay? So we talked about the first way of bringing stress is from your home, from your work. You're bringing stress that doesn't have anything to do with the competition with you. Squash those. Number two, okay? Stress of letting people down, letting your coaches, your teammates, all that. Again, that doesn't matter. You're the one that's important. Okay? You have, the stress of injury. Okay, just realize that it is a factor, but the likelihood is very minimal. You know, there's a risk in anything you do, and it's a very small risk. And then finally, the fear of the unknown. Okay, the setting, the environment, and the person you're competing with. So if you're able to conquer these fears, your stresses are going to be reduced dramatically, and you'll be able to compete much better. I guarantee you that most people tire quicker. If you're looking at a grappling tournament, they tire so fast. And matches are so short, they're like 4 minutes long. And most people train much longer than that. But they do those 4 minutes, and I see people literally pass out of pure exhaustion. And it's a normal thing. It's just the stress. If you eliminate that stress completely, you're going to compete so much better.